This third passage, usually people thought that pre-modern peoples used clearings for economic activity. That is, obviously not money, but the economy of food. They were making their food there. They were hunting there and then preparing their food there. And they may have even created clearings for this sort of economic activity. However, there's other evidence to suggest that maybe they didn't use clearings for economic, but for non-economic. And when this author talks about non-economic, she also uses the word social in line 55. So she kind of divides the pre-modern impetus for action into two categories, economic and non-economic or social. And that clearings may have been purely social, at least some of them. All right, so we've understood what we've read. That means we're ready to answer questions. We were asked what the main point is, and the main idea of the passage is these clearings are not just economic venues. They are also social venues, and there's answer choice B. And notice how answer choice B even captures the author's characterization of the economic model. That is, that in line 1, it's generally accepted. Answer choice B, this resource procurement is widely accepted, but available evidence shows that it may not all have been resource procurement. It may have been social, non-economic. That's what we want from our right answer. It mirrors the passage. It says what we know to be true. 16, I don't know, just asking if you're paying attention. What did we use those clearings for according to the economic model, the resource procurement? Line 5, they hunted, deliberate removal to attract grazing animals, or whether naturally created clearings just afforded opportunistic hunting. That's why answer choice B is correct. No problems there, right? Right. For 17, if you want support for the proposal, you got to start with what the proposal is. The proposal is about why these paths existed, and the author is saying it may have been out of fear of the woods. Well, if you want to support that, it does not help to support why the paths exist, simply to tell me that A, we've got art that depicts paths. Okay, great. There were paths. That doesn't tell me why. B, there are maps. Or, I'm sorry, that's not B, that's C. C, there are maps. Again, awesome, doesn't tell me why. Answer choice E, however, tells me why. If E is true and we know that if we could somehow know that they were doing these rituals in order to protect them, that tells us why these pre-human or these pre-modern humans undertook some of their activities. That's the kind of evidence that would support the proposal about why they were on these paths. And notice that just in its nature, answer choice E is different from these others. And that can be a powerful tool to keep in your toolbox. For 18, if it's going to be something that the passage said, it's going to be something that the passage said. In line 52, we can legitimately consider wilderness as a motivating concept in the Mesolithic. Answer choice D, they possessed a concept of wilderness. Done and done. For 19, how does the author use Yifu Tuan? Well, what does she say? She tells us what Yifu Tuan, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Please forgive me if I'm not. What Yifu Tuan argued, and then at the end of the paragraph says, if we apply this, Yifu Tuan's insight, if we apply this insight to the Mesolithic era. So how does she use the Yifu? By making it the basis for an argument about the Mesolithic, or D, to lay the groundwork for the hypothesis. And notice that here, as with every other question, it's a matter of there being a right answer. I mean, something we can go to the passage and say, this is what she was doing, and here's how I know why, because she said so. 20 seemed like the easiest question ever. I mean, because, okay, what would the author have liked to have seen? Well, what did the passage tell us she would like to have seen? I'm in line 15. Furthermore, the reason that I don't accept these purely economic models is that artifactual evidence, in line 15, that preparation took place within or near such clearings is generally lacking. If that is the reason I don't accept it, then I would be more likely to accept it if we had such artifactual evidence, and that is why A is right. Again, it has to come from the passage. 21, really rewarding your big picture reading and understanding of what you've just read. We talked about this at the top. This passage has divided the world into economic and non-economic, where economic is resource procurement, non-economic is what she calls social. So what do we know for sure about the phrase purely social phenomenon? That it is non-economic. And I want to make a special note of answer choice A. It arises as a byproduct. Look at the end of the passage. It's a purely social phenomenon since where the paths meet, wider clearings emerge as corners are cut. This is not planned activity. This is second order activity. They're in the paths because they're afraid of the woods, but as more and more of them walk the paths, they start to cut corners. And you know what this looks like on campus. There's always places on campus where you've got those concrete pathways, and then there's always a line just cutting the diagonal across through the grass. Same thing here. And as those paths get cut by increased use, they then become sort of natural social resting places. They are byproducts. They were not built on purpose. Finally, for 22, an analogy to the author's argument. Well, the author's argument is, while some ethnographic evidence has been used to bolster the resource procurement model, other evidence can be used to bolster a non-economic model. Answer choice B is probably tempting, but notice that is not as close as answer choice E. Because in our passage, the author was not saying we're using the same evidence. She very clearly said there's some evidence for the economic and there's other evidence for the non-economic. And that's why answer choice E is correct. And that finishes off this third passage.